And for our first conflict of interest today, we're going to start with Ukraine. Why? Well, because if you've been following the news, you know that Israel is on ceasefire right now. So we're still going to take a look at them, but we'll take a look at them in a couple minutes here. But first, let's look at this map update. So first of all, Ivanivka, we can see that they're reporting that the line has stabilized a bit. So let's compare from yesterday and today. We can see that Ukraine has seemingly pushed a little bit further, since as we saw about a few days ago, we've seen that Russian forces have kind of pushed a little bit in this area, not too much. Um, just generally speaking, just looking at it, yeah, we can just see that, this front line has kind of moved a bit. So yeah, I just really wanted to touch on that because this is, again, an area we haven't seen too much movement, only save for like this area, considering, we haven't seen any movement in here since that one big Russian offensive that was pushed back, and of course the Kharkiv counteroffensive. And now looking in Klashivka, we can see that we'll actually take a look at some kind of what's going on out there, but Ukrainian forces being pushed out of this northern area. And from what we can see, this what appears to be either roadway or rail line, which we will use that in a second here as a line to see of what's going on out there. But yeah, we can see that Ukrainian forces had pushed a decent amount north of here, but are gradually being pushed out. So why are they doing this? I'm assuming to further consolidate their area around Bakhmut, considering that if they wanted to retake the, frankly, pile of rubble that Bakhmut is now. I would be honestly really, really intrigued to see what the city actually looks like now, considering that fighting has been going on for so long. So I mean, if you remember that one video of the Wagner forces, I believe it was Prigozhin himself planting a flag on the Bakhmut City Hall, and it was literally a pile of rubble. So yeah, anyways, let's take a look at what's going on out there. So a lot of the fighting that I'm seeing out there, it's pretty intense, and this is coming out of what's being reported as the Klishivka Bakhmut area. We can see that this is actually a rail line, which is probably the one we talked about earlier, and we can see that there are a lot of kind of fires and houses kind of out here that are seemingly blown out or are smoking, and there is a lot of artillery fire and a lot of gunfire going on out there. So just talking about that, this is really intense. This is some really intense fighting going on out here. So, you know, I'm interested. I'm really, truly, honestly interested to see what this is going to turn out to. All right, now taking a look at what's being reported out there on the ground, we can see that not as much combat is being reported, or really any combat. I'm assuming that it's probably just a lack of reporting out there, and less shelling, which also I'm assuming amounts to the same. But what is really, really interesting out here is this. There are seemingly some Russian aviation going on out here, a bombardment, as we can see, going on in the Kherson direction, which is interesting to see that, as we know, Ukrainian forces are seemingly on this left bank of the Dnieper River. So, why are they really stepping up their aviation bombs out there? Although we know that they have been doing it for some time, but as to why they're kind of perhaps stepping it up now, uh, perhaps Ukrainians are trying to push harder, but they're being maybe a bit more quiet about it. Who knows? But this is definitely something else really interesting to see. But let's take a look at another clip out here. So I talked about this a little bit ago, and I'm interested and curious to see if anybody has any insight or an answer that they can provide me. But what I've been seeing a lot lately are Russians seemingly using blown out, destroyed, or abandoned vehicles as cover. And I had never really seen that before. I mean, I've been following the combat footage for quite a while, even before I started recording these videos. I've been following this combat footage since the war began. And I've never really seen this happen up until about maybe a week or two ago. So if anybody can tell me why this is happening all of a sudden, please let me know. But yeah, essentially in this clip, they're exactly that, just Russians using these vehicles as, cover. They're either hiding in them or hiding under them. So yeah, that's essentially what's going on in here. And I'm not going to show the rest of it because, this is an FPV drone, and if there are two Russians right here, you can kind of assume what's going to happen. But yeah, I'm just really, really curious. Perhaps there was some kind of change going on in tactics or whatnot, but yeah. Anyways, let's take a look at Israel. So there are a couple things I actually really wanted to look at out here. Number one, there were a few hostilities going on between Israel and Hezbollah, but they have completely quieted down. As of 8 hours ago, it was reported that there have been 12 hours of calm on the border with Israel and Lebanon out here. So there was a little bit of fighting, and I believe there was a little bit of gunfire going on before or a little bit after the ceasefire had happened. But other than that, we literally haven't seen any map update in terms of the past 4 days, and we're obviously not going to see any more, considering what's been going on lately. And there's literally not going to be a change because fighting has stopped. So other than that, there isn't anything else to talk about. But talking about the hostage exchange, what I really wanted to show was this. So if we just pivot here really quickly to Google Maps, we can see that the quality isn't great, but if you remember, it was Hamas militants who mainly pushed out of Gaza and seized hostages out there. So the big thing that I wanted to talk about was, who are these hostages? Well, as we know, there is disproportionately a really large number of Thai citizens who were taken. So why? Well, if we look out here, we can see there are a lot of fields, and fields means farming, right? These are fields used completely around Gaza, which Gaza also has some fields as well. But what Israel mainly does is they import workers, and a lot of those workers actually come from Thailand. So, interestingly enough, a lot of the hostages are literally just farm workers who aren't even Israeli. So, yeah. Um, which of course makes sense as to why they're the first people who get released, because they're really not a part of this. They're just here to work for however long. A lot of them, from what I understand, are just workers who come here, to, earn their wage and then go back to wherever their home country is, such as, the Thai citizens. And I was reading a story about a certain individual, and he was captured, and they weren't sure if he was, among the deceased or just hostages. So yeah, he turned out to be one of the hostages, and he was released. And yeah, and so he was just working out here just to earn a wage and eventually go back to Thailand. I believe he wanted to work out here for perhaps a year or two, somewhere around there. But anyways, um, yeah, so it's really really interesting to see that this whole thing about capturing Israeli hostages turned out to be, they captured a lot of just farmhands that aren't even Israeli. So anyways, let's take a look at something else that's going on out here. Okay, now bringing it back to Ukraine really quick, we just got an Oryx update, so let's take a look at the losses out here. So first of all, Ukraine was sitting at 4,725 equipment destroyed, and now they're sitting at 4,731. So 6 equipment destroyed. And looking at Russia, we can see that they're at 13,152, and now they're at 13,182, so around 30 destroyed, which, is probably about what we're expecting, considering that Russia has been on a pretty broad assault, and usually on these assaults, especially in the Avdiivka direction, just kind of throwing a lot of men and material at the problem. Usually we'd probably expect, just in general, a 1 to 3 in favor of Ukraine, but in terms of this, we'd probably expect exactly this, a 1 to 10, which is about what it was looking like in Bakhmut, considering casualty losses. So this is, considering what's been going on with Oryx, this is about in line with what we're expecting. So now talking about Myanmar here really quick. First of all, we can take a look at this clip out here. And these are just soldiers. They're just on march. They aren't doing anything. And these guys are from the KNDF, as we know. So they are what they seem to be doing is primarily, this is just, propaganda footage, first of all. So, that's pretty much the point of this. But it's a lot of them. There are a lot of soldiers out here. And why I wanted to show this is that, just because they have a lot of manpower doesn't mean that they're makes them more effective, as we've seen, with Wagner, even though they had a lot of men and material to throw at the problem at one city. Although proved in the end to be effective, Wagner was then considered irrelevant, considering it ground itself into nothingness. Um, but all that would ground itself into nothingness in Ukraine because, as we know, they're still pretty active in Mali and I believe Sudan. But just looking at this conflict, the KNDF is experiencing a decent amount of success out there, considering a lot of the footage that we've been seeing of them, taking cities, taking towns, and just taking territory. So, just talking about that, these guys are, I'm assuming that, they are probably recruiting even more by the day as they take more and more uh, uh, area and territory, more towns. So, just talking about not just the KNDF, but also the junta, anti-junta forces, um, and especially their increasing ever dissatisfaction of China with, the Myanmar government. I can only assume that they just weaken and weaken more by the day. So, just looking at this and looking at this conflict, we can probably see more and more success by anti-junta forces as this conflict goes on. Other than that, that's all I really had to talk about for today. So if there's anything else you want me to touch on, let me know. And other than that, thanks for watching, everyone.